The Obi-Wan Kenobi series is finished. Or is it? I'm always tempted to start these reviews of Obi-Wan Kenobi with a
hello there.
But of course, we got that in the show. Nice little throw in there. Everyone was expecting it, but the way they did it was pretty damn cool. The first thing he says to Luke is the first thing he says to him in episode 4, the movie. Billed as the rematch of the century, I guess. But one of the greatest movie rematches of all time is what we're going to be getting. And we got a rematch. Whether it was one of the greatest of all time, it was kind of short, very darkly lit. The stuff with Reva, I will say, Reva chasing down Luke through Tatooine, that was horribly shot. The screen was black. I couldn't see a single thing, apart from when she turned on her lightsaber. It was horrendously shot. That was the bad part of the episode. Completely unnecessary too. What they're going to do with Reva, whether she'll have her own series or pop up in another series, which we'll talk about later on, which I think is a possibility, or whether she was in one of the animated series that I didn't watch and was killed off there, we'll wait and see what happens with Reva. But getting into the core of the episode, Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader. That was what this entire series was building towards, the rematch. When they square off properly. Obi-Wan has finally rediscovered his own powers. Vader has gotten what he's wanted. He's split away from his mission just to track him down, and finally they're going to go one-on-one. And Vader just destroys him. Throws him into a pit. He throws the rocks at him, he's in the pit. And the one problem with a prequel series pops up right here. We know Obi-Wan survives. So when Vader throws him in the pit and throws all the rocks at him and walks away, with any other character, say he did that to Reva, you could legitimately think she was dead. But with Obi-Wan, we know he survives. So, you know, the stakes are lowered. We know he's somehow survives underneath all those rocks. Then we see the thing that keeps him going is Leia and Luke. He has to protect them from Vader. He musters up the strength, he gets it all back, and out of nowhere attacks Vader. This time, he's going to end it. Now, the battle is interesting, and Obi-Wan almost seems to be feeding into his anger and his hatred just like Anakin did. He's given Vader everything he's got. He's shown what a Master Jedi is, and he ultimately bursts Darth Vader's helmet in a very epic scene for a live action thing. I know it was done in Rebels too. This is the first time in live action we've seen it. And Vader's helmet being burst open like that, seeing part of his face, seeing Hayden Christensen's face, Anakin's face, that was kind of cool. They had their little moment, their little emotional point where Obi-Wan sees his friend, sees Anakin, not just Vader. And we get that dialogue that ties in perfectly where Vader says,
"You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did."
And of course that ties in beautifully with the original movies where Obi-Wan Kenobi tells Luke that Darth Vader killed Anakin.
How did my father die?
A young Jedi named Darth Vader.
I loved what they did in that scene where they had the blue light and the red light on Vader as you see the last bit of Anakin emerging. You can hear Hayden Christensen's voice and James Earl Jones' voice in a conflicted manner in there. There's still a little bit of good in there. We know that's true from the original movies. The little bit of light is shown brilliantly from a cinematic point, in my opinion, both through the lighting and the audio. Now, the series did rely heavily on using lightsabers as light sources, and that can really be a shit thing to do, because as I mentioned with the stuff with Reva, a lot of it was very difficult to see what was happening. Something they need to maybe dial down in future series. But we still got some epic shots in it. The one with Obi-Wan, he's got all the boulders and rocks above his head. That was pretty cool. Vader's helmet burst open with the lighting. That was damn epic. But as I mentioned all the way through the series, there is a weird point in there in that Leia has no reason to forget who Obi-Wan Kenobi is. She even calls him Obi-Wan in the episode. What I was thinking in the episode towards the end is if she refers to him as Ben Kenobi, that might be a get around for them as to why she remembers Obi-Wan Kenobi, because at the start of episode 4 of the movie, I've mentioned this a few times in my other reviews, she clearly says in her message on R2-D2,
General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars.
She doesn't say, hey, remember when you saved me a few years ago? Remember me? Princess Leia? Alderaan? Leia Organa? She goes, you served my father in the Clone Wars, as if they don't know each other. But then when Leia's saved by Luke in the prison cell, He says, Ben Kenobi's here. She says,
Ben Kenobi, where is he?
this seems to suggest that she did know who Ben Kenobi was, not Obi-Wan Kenobi. Minor point, I think there is a workaround for it. And I think it might work really well considering how good the actress who played Leia in this series was. In a couple of years' time, we might get Star Wars Leia getting her own series. That could be pretty cool. Seeing Leia grow up into the badass that she ultimately becomes. Perhaps a good way to pay homage to Carrie Fisher. That could be a very interesting series for Disney to do. And, you know, Disney, if you come up with that now, you're kind of going to have to pay me some rights for that. I'm pretty sure I just came up with it right there on the spot and you're going to have to owe me money. Pretty sure that's how that works. Kind of living in hope there, aren't I? The episode was over an hour long. It whizzed by for me personally. Had its good points, had its bad points. As I mentioned, I didn't enjoy the stuff with Reva. I loved the stuff with Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And people can nitpick at it. You know, I didn't like this line. I didn't like the way he did that. I didn't like... You know, you can nitpick all day, but for the most part, they tied in the story really well, had some good action in there. We got Darth Vader back on screen. We got some good storytelling. And one thing I love is that Hayden Christensen gets back into the Star Wars universe and he gets the love for his performances. Because he got a lot of shit when the prequel movies came out. People were saying he was wooden. People were saying just horrendous things about him. The guy, for someone who was just trying to be an actor up and coming, who had a good reputation before he was in Star Wars, he just got shit on when those movies came out, to the point where he actually quit acting after he did Jumper. And maybe it's just he made enough money and he was like, hey, that's me done. But the guy was shit on. He got a lot of hate after the prequels, and it's great to see him getting so much love from the Star Wars universe now. He fully deserves it. I actually have always liked the prequel movies, and maybe that's because I was a kid when the first few came out. I've only got good memories of them. And sure, there's stuff like Jar Jar and all that stuff. There's stuff you can nitpick. There's too much politics in it, midi-chlorians, all that. But it's got some really cool moments in it. And it's got some really cool new things in it. And I think the sequels turned a lot of people's heads to, hey, maybe the prequels aren't so bad. And of course, I completely forgot, spoiler alert here if you haven't watched the finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi, why you're watching the reviews of it, I don't know. Qui-Gon Jinn comes back. Something we've been waiting for so damn long. He was in the Clone Wars animated series, but Liam Neeson wasn't. Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon Jinn, even just as a cameo. I mentioned it last week in my review of episode 5. It would be fantastic if he came back, even just in the cameo of Force Vision, and we get just that. Nice little tie-in at the end. Because, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi has to learn how to become a Force Ghost himself. Because when he's struck down by Vader in episode 4, he says,
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
There's now talk of a season 2 for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Kathleen Kennedy has reportedly come out and said, because of major interest, we might consider doing a season 2, even though it was initially only going to be a limited series. I both love and hate that idea. I'd love to see more of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'd love to see more adventures. I'd love to see Hayden Christensen in there more. But what did they do? There's only so much story they could fill in between this series and episode 4 before overdoing it. And they can't exactly have Vader get beaten again. Because while Vader won the first fight between the two of them in the episode, he lost the second one quite badly. He was also damaged in Rebels through Ahsoka. He was also beaten in the Force Unleashed video games. I don't think they're canon, but maybe they are. But there's only so many times Darth Vader can be beaten and still be taken seriously as the biggest bad guy in the universe. He had his moments in the series. He was shown really strong and really vicious throughout episode 3 of the series. He's just pulling people out of buildings and killing them to taunt and antagonize Obi-Wan Kenobi. He pulls Obi-Wan Kenobi into the fire in a vicious attack, perhaps one of the most brutal attacks we've seen from any Sith. And in episode 5, he pulls that ship down from the sky and tears it apart like it's made of cheese. Vader was made to look very, very strong. And Obi-Wan had to be at his absolute best, his biggest, his baddest, his most powerful, to even strike down Darth Vader. But at the same time, Vader lost again. But overall, I really enjoyed Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series. And I never thought we'd see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi again, but here we are, and in my opinion, it was fantastic all the way through. But this is where I throw it over to you guys, because I'm eager to hear your opinions on Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know all about it in the comment section below.